What if I told you that one of the most powerful, most advanced, most resilient nations in the world is quietly breaking from within? That behind the headlines, beyond the politics, and beneath the surface of strength, there's a growing storm no one wants to talk about. Today, we're not here to spread fear. We're here to face the truth. And the truth is this: more and more Israelis, doctors, soldiers, students, even lifelong patriots, are packing their bags and walking away from the very country they helped build. But why? This isn't about just numbers. This is about broken trust, rising struggles, and a dream that feels like it's slipping away. And the reasons will shock you. In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover the 6 hidden forces that are pushing a generation to choose exile over home. We're going deep, not into conspiracy, but into cold, hard reality. And by the end of this video, you'll see a side of Israel the mainstream media never showed. A side filled with pain, pressure, and powerful decisions. So stay with me. Don't blink. Because what you're about to hear might change the way you see the world and the meaning of what it truly means to stay, to leave, and to belong. A crisis of trust in leadership has quietly become one of the most significant forces driving Israelis to consider leaving their homeland. Over the past decade, Israel has experienced an almost unprecedented level of political instability. With 5 national elections in a span of just 4 years, the sense of continuity and direction has evaporated. Citizens are not just exhausted by the process, they're disillusioned by the outcome. Leaders from across the political spectrum have failed to deliver real change, and instead many have been tainted by scandal, accusations of corruption, and self-serving agendas. The people see a cycle. Politicians who promise reform, who speak of unity and security, but once in power seem more focused on personal legacy than public welfare. This erosion of trust has particularly affected younger generations, many of whom feel that their voices are ignored, their struggles dismissed, and their futures uncertain. Moreover, the polarization between political camps has created a culture of suspicion and fear, where civil discourse is increasingly replaced by hate speech and division. In what was once called the startup nation, the innovation and collective spirit that built a thriving society now seem overshadowed by ideological warfare. Citizens are tired of promises that never materialize. They're tired of voting only to find the same dysfunction repeating itself. It's no longer about left or right. It's about a system that feels broken. When people start to feel like nothing will change no matter who wins, the desire to seek a better system elsewhere grows stronger. The judicial overhaul controversy has deepened this rift, with many perceiving it as an attempt to undermine democratic checks and balances. Protests erupted in the streets, not simply because of one law or one proposal, but because of a deep-seated anxiety that the very identity of the nation is being reshaped without the people's consent. When trust in the system collapses, when faith in leadership disappears, people don't just complain, they pack up and leave. They begin to look for countries where leadership listens, where the system feels fair, and where they can believe in the future again. For many Israelis, this isn't about running away. It's about choosing to live in a place where they feel seen, heard, and respected. The soaring cost of living in Israel has become a burden that many families can no longer carry. What once was a land of hope and opportunity now feels, for many, like a place where survival comes at too high a price. Tel Aviv, often celebrated as a global tech hub, is also now one of the most expensive cities in the world. Rent prices have skyrocketed, with small apartments costing more than entire homes in many parts of Europe or North America. For young couples trying to start a life, owning property is a dream slipping further out of reach with each passing year. Wages have not kept up with inflation, and while some in the tech industry earn global salaries, the majority of Israelis are finding it harder and harder to keep up with the basics: housing, healthcare, education, and food. The pressure doesn't end at the doorstep. Grocery prices have surged, and even basic items cost significantly more than in neighboring countries. Middle-class families who once formed the backbone of the Israeli economy now find themselves living paycheck to paycheck. Parents worry about their ability to provide for their children, not just in terms of food and clothing, but in educational opportunities and a stable future. Many are forced to work multiple jobs just to stay afloat, sacrificing time with their families and any sense of balance. These economic pressures do not exist in a vacuum. They seep into every part of life, creating stress, mental health challenges, and a growing sense of hopelessness. There is also a growing frustration with what is perceived as economic favoritism. Certain sectors and communities receive government subsidies while others feel ignored and overtaxed. This imbalance fuels resentment and deepens the social divide. It's not just that life is expensive, it's that it feels unfair. When people in other countries enjoy higher standards of living, better social safety nets, and more affordable housing, the question arises, why stay and struggle when there might be a better life elsewhere? Many Israelis are choosing to move not because they want to abandon their identity, but because they believe they can live with dignity and stability and fairness that value affordability and fairness. The rising cost of living is not just an economic issue, it's a deeply personal and emotional one that is quietly pushing people toward the exits. Fear over long-term security and the weight of living under constant threat have become central reasons why many Israelis are reconsidering their future in the country. From the moment a child is born in Israel, the reality of conflict is never far away. Families live with the sound of sirens, the knowledge of bomb shelters, and the possibility of war breaking out with little warning. Despite the nation's strong defense capabilities, including the Iron Dome and elite intelligence services, the psychological burden of existing in a permanent state of alert takes a toll over time. It's not just about the physical danger, it's about the emotional fatigue of always having to look over one's shoulder, of raising children in an environment where school drills and rocket warnings are part of daily life. The security situation is further complicated by the deep-rooted and unresolved conflict with the Palestinians, periodic flare-ups in Gaza, and the looming threat from Hezbollah in Lebanon or Iran's regional ambitions. Every few years, violence returns to the headlines, but for those living in Israel, it never truly goes away. The sense of fragility, of peace that can be shattered in a second, is always present. This uncertainty is not just a military concern. It shapes where people live, how they travel, and even the career paths they choose. Young adults who serve in the Army face real and lasting trauma. And many families who once believed in building a strong, united future now wonder if it is worth subjecting their children to a life of perpetual risk. Beyond the visible conflicts, there is also growing fear about internal divisions, the fractures within Israeli society, between Jews and Arabs, religious and secular, left and right, have deepened. Riots and clashes inside mixed cities during recent years shocked the nation and reminded everyone that instability isn't always about outside threats. It can also emerge from within. The rise in anti-Semitism globally adds another layer of complexity. While Israel was founded as a refuge, some Israelis now ask whether that refuge can truly offer peace of mind anymore. In contrast, countries with greater political stability and geographical safety seem more appealing, especially for families yearning for predictability, safety, and peace. It's not about abandoning home. It's about escaping a life lived under a shadow of fear that never seems to lift. Israel's growing brain drain is a silent crisis with profound long-term consequences. Talented young professionals, scientists, engineers, and medical experts are choosing to leave the country not because they lack patriotism, but because they see limited opportunities for personal and professional growth. For years, Israel has taken pride in being the startup nation, celebrated for its innovation, creativity, and tech achievements, and celebrated for its innovation, creativity, and tech achievement. But now, many of the very minds that helped build that reputation are taking their skills abroad. They're moving to Silicon Valley, Berlin, London, and Toronto. Places where their work is better funded, their ideas are more supported, and their quality of life is higher. It's not just about higher salaries. It's about respect, balance, and being able to build a life with fewer obstacles. One of the main drivers of this exodus is the struggle for academic and career advancement. Universities in Israel face budget constraints, research institutions often lack sufficient support, and many researchers are bogged down by bureaucracy instead of focusing on breakthroughs. In contrast, international institutions offer larger grants, modern labs, and an environment that encourages exploration. For young innovators, the choice becomes clear: stay and struggle or go and thrive. This choice is especially hard on those who still feel emotionally tied to the land, who speak Hebrew, who served in the military, and who deeply care about their national identity. But even loyalty has its limits when faced with burnout and blocked paths. Another factor is the high-pressure environment within Israel's workforce. The culture of long hours, intense competition, and little work-life balance is common in many industries, especially in tech. Meanwhile, countries abroad are offering not just better jobs, but healthier lives. Places where one can work hard, but also rest, raise a family, and breathe. Families see this pattern and begin to plan for their children's future. They want to give them a head start in systems where the climb isn't so steep and the reward doesn't come at the cost of personal well-being. Every year, this quiet migration continues. Bright minds, motivated workers, and gifted youth slipping away into other nations' success stories. It's not just a loss of talent. It's a loss of hope, of belief that things will change, and that potential can be realized without first crossing a border. The growing tension between religious and secular communities in Israel has become a defining fault line in the nation's internal fabric, pushing many to reconsider whether the country still reflects the values they believe in. Israel was established as both a Jewish and democratic state, but in recent years, the balance between religion and individual freedom has tilted in ways that many secular Israelis find increasingly difficult to live with. The influence of ultra-Orthodox political parties has surged, and with it, legislation and policies that prioritize religious doctrine over pluralistic values. For secular families, this has real-world consequences, from restrictions on public transportation during Shabbat to changes in school curricula, to concerns about women's rights and LGBTQ+ freedoms. These aren't just political disagreements. They're deeply personal issues about how people want to live, raise their children, and express themselves. This divide is not only cultural, but economic as well. A significant portion of the ultra-Orthodox population does not participate in the workforce at the same rate as secular Israelis, yet receives substantial state support. This dynamic breeds resentment among tax-paying citizens who feel they are shouldering the burden while being told how to live. Secular Israelis want a country that respects religious freedom, but also protects the right to be non-religious, to live without being bound by laws rooted in one interpretation of Judaism. When policies feel like coercion rather than choice, the social contract begins to crack. People start to question not only the direction of the government, but the fundamental identity of the country itself. Education has also become a battleground. Many secular parents are concerned that public funds are being used for religious schools that do not teach core subjects like math, science, or English, potentially leaving entire generations unprepared for modern life. These shifts raise alarms about the long-term sustainability and competitiveness of Israeli society. For many, the solution is to quietly exit the conflict altogether by emigrating to countries where secularism is protected, diversity is embraced, and religion and state operate in separate spheres. The departure is not always loud or political. Often it's a whisper. Families applying for dual citizenship, young people accepting foreign university offers, professionals finding jobs abroad. It's a movement driven by the desire for freedom, not from faith itself, but from the imposition of faith as law. In recent years, there has been a noticeable and growing trend of Israelis seeking citizenship or residency in Western countries, a reflection of deeper concerns about stability, opportunity, and quality of life. Countries like Germany, Portugal, Canada, Australia, and the United States have become favorite destinations for those looking to begin a new chapter. Some are using ancestral connections to obtain European passports, while others are applying through skilled migration or academic programs. This wave of emigration is not driven solely by economics or politics. It's driven by a longing for normalcy, for peace, and for a sense of long-term security that many feel is no longer guaranteed in Israel. These Western nations offer what many Israelis now crave: a stable political climate, affordable living, better work-life balance, and functioning institutions that don't feel constantly on the edge of crisis. For many of those leaving, it's not an act of rebellion or protest, but a deeply personal decision rooted in what's best for their children and future generations. The hope is to find a place where they won't have to worry about the next conflict, where education is affordable, healthcare is accessible, and the social fabric feels less strained. In Israel, the daily pressures of life, from economic stress to cultural divisions to security threats, have created a climate that some no longer wish to endure. The dream of Zionism still lives in the hearts of many, but that dream is now being weighed against the day-to-day reality of living in a country that feels increasingly polarized and unpredictable. Additionally, for many young Israelis, Western countries represent a kind of freedom they don't feel at home. Freedom to explore different lifestyles without judgment, freedom from religious mandates in public policy, and freedom to pursue global opportunities without barriers. These countries offer access to international job markets, higher education, and a broader worldview. The accessibility of remote work has only accelerated this shift, making it easier than ever for Israelis to relocate without sacrificing career ambition. As more families make the move, it creates a ripple effect. Friends and relatives see the change, hear about the better conditions, and begin to consider the same path. It's a quiet migration, often made with heavy hearts, but it reflects a profound truth. When people no longer feel like their home is serving their needs, they start searching for one that will. So what we're witnessing isn't just a quiet exodus, it's a cry for change. It's not about turning away from a homeland, but about turning toward a life of dignity, peace, and opportunity. When a nation built on resilience begins to see its own people walking away, not out of hate, but out of heartbreak, it's time to ask hard questions. Trust has been broken, the cost of living is suffocating, security feels more like a burden than a blessing. The brightest minds are leaving, the cultural divide is growing, and the allure of the West feels stronger than the pull of home. This isn't just about politics. This is about people, mothers, fathers, students, dreamers, who want to live, not just survive.